Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kay, and today I'm going to be doing the second half of my wrap-up for the month of August. So I did one about mid-month, I will link it up above, with the first 5 or 6 books that I read in the month, and now I'm going to do the second wrap-up with the last 5 books that I read this month. And I'm also going to go over my stats for the entire month of August. So that is where I'm going to start. For the month of August, I read 11 books, and across those 11 books, I read 4,161 pages. 9 of those books came from the library, and 2 of them were books that I already owned. All 11 books were print books, so I did not read any ebooks or listen to any audiobooks this month. 7 of those books were adult novels, and 4 were YA. For the genre breakdown, I had 8 fantasy, 1 horror, 1 sci-fi, and 1 thriller. So once again this month I read predominantly fantasy, not surprising. And then as far as star ratings go, I read 3 5-star, 6 4-star, 2 3-star, no 2 stars, no 1 stars, and then I did DNF 3 books this month. So at the end of the year I will do kind of a wrap up of all of my DNF books. I already did one that I will link up above that was for the first 6 months of the year, so January through June, and then at the end of the year I will do July through December. That'll come right at the end of the year or the very beginning of 2020, just depending on when I get it filmed. So I'm not really going to talk about them in this video, you'll see them later. So the first book that I read this month was In Ashes Lie by Marie Brennan. This is the second book in the Onyx Court series. I'm not really going to talk about what the book is about because it will spoil the first one, but I will give you a brief synopsis of the first one, which is Midnight Never Come. And it takes place in Elizabethan London. You have Elizabeth in her mortal court, and then literally below London you have Queen Invidiana, and she is the elfin queen of the fairy court. She's basically a tyrant and she's terrible. Our story follows Lady Loon, who is a member of that court, as well as Michael Devon, who is a member of the mortal court above. And they are kind of working at the same problem from different ends, and that problem being Queen Invidiana and her influence over Elizabeth and the kind of mortal concerns. And I really enjoyed it. You get kind of Marie Brennan, again, using history and then going in and kind of the little gaps that history doesn't really tell us about, and then filling them in with her own story, and that's what's happening here. So a lot of the characters that you hear mentioned in the Mortal Court were actual people in history. She's just gone in and filled in the gaps with fairy, and it was really fun. I also really enjoyed the sequel. Pretty sure I gave it 4 stars. I plan on reading the 3rd and 4th book in this series in September probably, so hopefully I'll really enjoy those as well. Next up, I read Turning Darkness into Light by Marie Brennan as well. This was a new release, so I got it like the day after it came out or something from my library. So this is kind of a continuation standalone from the Memoirs of Lady Trent series. Again, not going to go too much into it except to say that it does follow Lady Isabella's granddaughter, Audrey Camhurst. She is a philologist, so she studies languages, especially Draconian, and she is basically brought in to translate some tablets that have been discovered and find out kind of what they say. They are presumed to be fairly important, possibly groundbreaking in some way, because it does appear that it's a continuous narrative, some sort of long-form story, which is not anything that has really been found before. And she kind of just gets tangled up in the political happenings that are going on around her while she's trying to translate these tablets. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it, I believe, 4 stars, read it in 2 days. Can't wait to buy it and add it to the collection, add it to the stack with all of the others. And if Marie Brennan wanted to write more about Audrey, I would not say no. I would buy the book. I would read the book. I'm sure I would love the book. So 4 stars, really good. Next up, I'm going to do them together since they go together. I read Ghostly Echoes and then The Dire King by William Ritter. These are books 3 and 4 in the Jacoby series. Again, not going to go into what these specific books are about because it'll be spoilers for the previous 2 books. These books follow Jacoby and his assistant, Abigail Rook. And it's more or less a Sherlock Holmes kind of retelling with supernatural. So Jacoby is a supernatural detective. He can see auras and fairy creatures, and he can kind of see the truth behind the magic kind of thing. And Abigail is a young woman who has left her home in England and has now arrived in New England, so in the States. And New Fiddleham is the name of the city that they are in, and she kind of stumbles upon a help wanted sign, applies for the job, kind of shows up at Jacoby's house applying for the job, gets it, and then she is the one who actually is telling the story. So much like Watson is telling the story of Sherlock in his investigations, Abigail does the same for Jacoby. I am surprisingly fond of these books, so there are 4 and I have now read all 4 of them, and I really enjoy them. They're just a lot of fun. So they're not like deep thinking, kind of books. They are just a good time. They're quick reads and they're a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed them. I kind of breezed through them. So the last book that I read this month was The Last House Guest by Miranda. This was the book that was sent to my editor by the publisher, and he knows I'm a reader, handed it off to me. I think that was a couple months ago, possibly. I had just had 1 day left in the month. I wanted to kind of bump up my page count. So I picked this up and I read it in a day. It was a lot of fun. So this book, just to give a brief summary, you have Avery, who's telling the story. She is a native of Littleport. It is one of those little coastal towns where rich people like to go and vacation kind of for the summer. They stay for the summer. They have their summer homes, whatever. And her best friend Sadie died the summer before in a presumed suicide, and she is not convinced. She was best friends with her, and just from what she knew, she didn't believe that Sadie would have jumped off a cliff into the ocean and killed herself. And this takes place a year after that happened, so the book is kind of split into current, present day. Avery's trying to kind of figure out what happened. And then it's also going back to the night that Sadie died and kind of reliving Avery's memories from those nights. And this was really good for what I needed it to be. It was a palate cleanser. I've been reading a high volume of fantasy and sci-fi, I guess you could say. And every once in a while it's nice to read something that's totally different from what I normally read. In this case, I usually pick up something like a thriller. Just because I do find them interesting because it's got a mystery, so it kind of propels you through the book, makes it very readable, very quick. And this was exactly that, and I did really enjoy it. I am very bad at figuring out who did it. I can never figure it out before the end. I did have a bit of an inkling, like right before the reveal kind of thing, but typically I can never guess. And I don't read a lot of thrillers, so I can't say whether or not this was a particularly good one as far as like the genre goes. I don't know if this was kind of just a rehashed like story plotline type thing. I have no idea. I am not the person to ask. Maybe go find a dedicated review from someone who reads a lot of these kind of books. But I enjoyed it. I think it's what, people would typically call a beach read. I read it in basically a sitting. It would definitely, I could see how someone would enjoy, just being out, relaxing, and tearing through this in a day or two. So that's it for today. That's all I've got. Thanks for sticking around. Like and subscribe down below if you want. Leave a comment if you have read any of these books. Let me know what you thought. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!